Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar. We're so excited to have you on the line today. This is the Confluence 5.7 pre-launch webinar, an exclusive webinar for you, our experts. I'm broadcasting to you from New York City today. My name is Ryan Anderson, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Confluence. If you're turning into our APAC time zone webinar, I'm also joined by Confluence Product Marketing Manager John Wettenhall, who's helping with Q&A today. To start off, I just want to give you some background about who I am. I've been with Atlassian for 4.5 years, and I've spent that entire time marketing Confluence and team calendars. I recently moved from San Francisco, where I worked in the Atlassian office there, to New York City, where I'm now working remotely. And lastly, I love to mountain bike, play categories, and eat as much barbecue as I possibly can. So my goal today is to show you 3 things. First, while I'm sure everyone knows what Confluence is, I want to paint a picture of what Atlassian knows Confluence to be. Then I want to show you what's coming in Confluence 5.7, our newest release for Confluence, that'll be available starting next week. And finally, I want to take a look at the vision we have for Confluence and tell you about what focus areas we'll be working on as a team for the next 12 to 18 months. So let's get started with what Confluence is. Confluence is our team collaboration platform, and it's one of our oldest and most loved applications that has incredible momentum right now. But it has a pretty simple vision. It's where work becomes teamwork. Let me dive down a little further into what that team vision is. And it's something that we refer to as the collaboration cycle. It starts with creation and sharing of information, discovery, and then goes to discovery of that information, and then most importantly, taking action on that information so work actually gets done. There are 3 core values of the Confluence team. The first one is that everyone should have a voice. Secondly, that information should flow freely between individuals and between the teams that those individuals make up. And then finally, that collaboration only really happens if it happens in the place where work gets done. So having a separate application to your work application makes it difficult for collaboration to be successful. So our third value is that we want Confluence to be a place where work actually gets done. What I want to share with you is why we win. We recently did research to determine what were the 3 key reasons Confluence won in the eyes of our customers. It's really important to understand what our strengths are so we can continue investing in those strengths, but also understand what some of our weaknesses are so we can look to improve those. But overwhelmingly, the number one reason that we heard we win with our customers is that we have first-class Jira integration. 1 in every 2 Confluence customers also use Jira. That's a number we are driving with integration features and want to continue to drive and compel all Jira customers to use Confluence because it enhances the power of Jira. We want our customers to know that the sum of the parts is greater than the individual parts themselves. And that's something we've really been focusing on for the last year, and something we'll continue to focus on this year, is telling stories to Jira customers about why Confluence makes their experience with Jira, and typically their experience building great products, better. The second thing we heard was that Confluence is the one place for teams to collaborate, learn, and grow. So we found that customers love Confluence because it centralizes and gives instant access to key documents and files to a team or entire organization. We've also found that customers love our editor. We've heard it's intuitive so everyone can use it, but dynamic and powerful enough so that power users can build special and advanced pages. We've also heard that people really like the potential that Confluence provides, as it can scale from small medium businesses and small teams within larger organizations into a full enterprise solution. And I think that one's a really interesting reason for why we win. I think we see a lot of development teams start with Confluence, and what they like about it is they know it can grow to other teams that they work with. That's really powerful. Number 3, that Confluence is a trusted and extensible collaboration platform. As I said, we have great momentum. Confluence is the tool of choice for over 20,000 organizations, and that's made possible by the great work your teams and the other hundreds of experts do around the world. We share a legendary customer support experience, and our competitive pricing is something we found our customers to love. Last but not least, having an extensible platform also means 500 plus add-ons, a rich set of APIs and integrations that put Confluence in a class of its own. And I think that's really what a lot of customers are buying into is this platform that they can customize, that they can extend to meet their needs. And there's so many people like them doing it. That's such a testament to the work we've been doing, but also the work that you guys have been doing. And it's incredible that that gets to be one of the reasons we win. So now it's your turn. We'd love to hear from you. Why do your customers love Confluence? And why were they compelled to buy it and use it every day? If you could please just take a moment to type in a few reasons you found that customers chose Confluence. I'm just going to hang out for 30 seconds while you send those in. And if you think of more throughout the presentation, please send them in. It really just helps us get a holistic understanding. And you guys are on the front lines talking to customers every day. So it would just be great information for us to have. Alrighty, thanks everyone. Thanks for sending everything through. So I want to cover use cases that we've identified with our customers and what they're using Confluence for every day. So I'll kind of start with this simple statement. Confluence is great for. Confluence is great for software development teams. By far, the number one use case for Confluence is for software development. As I said, 1 in 2 Confluence customers also own Jira. And what I mean by software development teams is actually product teams. That's all teams involved in the software development lifecycle from concept to launch. So product management, business analysts, software developers, development team leads, QA engineers, designers, technical writers, marketing and sales. The list really goes on, but I'll stop there. And we have a pretty simple description for what software teams use Confluence for in this use case. Software teams assemble ideas, product requirements, and documentation to build better products. And we find that our customers use Confluence to ideate and organize their ideas. They like Confluence to centralize and standardize their product requirements. That when Confluence is paired with Jira, Confluence is the best place to collaborate around content and add context and visibility to the work being tracked in Jira. And lastly, Confluence is the place that organizations want to unite their development team with the rest of the business by communicating progress of development and other major updates. So really, Confluence is this really important glue product for Jira, where it provides a lot of the color around the work that's being tracked in Jira, and it's such an important add-on and such an important part of selling to software teams is what can Confluence do for Jira, which so many software development teams already have. All right, next up, Confluence is great for IT teams. The second most common use case for Confluence is IT teams. We find that there are a ton of IT teams using Confluence to service their internal customers by using Confluence as a wiki or as a knowledge base. And again, we have a simple description for what Confluence is used for in this use case. IT teams centralize documentation and policies to better support and service their customers. And when I say customers, I'm really talking about internal customers, how IT teams service the rest of their organization. We see that a ton of IT teams use Confluence to create and organize policies and documentation, making use of Confluence's editor and content hierarchy to give people access to how-to articles, troubleshooting articles, and other important documentation that is normally passed around in paper copy or generally inaccessible by their organization. So for IT teams, Confluence is so much about access. Jira Service Desk is also quickly becoming a staple amongst IT teams. It's just flying off the shelves for us, so to speak. And Confluence integrates with Service Desk to provide users with a knowledge base to help deflect tickets that are incoming from people in their organization and really keep service teams flowing, if not afloat, flowing. Um, so customers have told us time and time again that it's a huge help to integrate Confluence with Jira Service Desk, and developing that knowledge base as an IT team is so critical for their success. So whether they're using Confluence with Jira Service Desk or not, it's so important for them to have a knowledge base that people can access, and get the information they need from their IT team. So, thirdly, Confluence is great for business teams. This is the third most common use case, and by far the one we seek to grow in the coming years, business teams. We find that we typically don't land with business teams, but that most business teams start using Confluence because it was being used by the development or IT teams and then expanded to other parts of the organization. And so business teams are marketing and sales, HR, management, finance, um, kind of a lot of the teams that are really important to the business, but maybe aren't so focused on the actual building of the product, or whatever the business is selling. So we want to be able to land with business teams, and we really see it as the next frontier for Confluence. So a simple description is business teams plan projects, gather feedback, and communicate plans to grow their businesses faster. We found that before Confluence, business teams struggle to organize and centralize their work. I think business teams are heavily reliant on email, but business teams, more than any other teams use a multitude of tools that are really challenged to keep their work and discussions in one place. So their information and their work, and when they talk about their work, is just scattered across so many different tools. Confluence is a great place to centralize project plans, meeting notes, and a variety of other important content. We see a lot of business teams using Confluence to plan their projects, and not necessarily in the way that you might use Jira to plan and track, but they're really making use of the content hierarchy to keep everything in one place and get kind of a holistic vision of what needs to get done in any given project. So we have, and I'm sure you've seen this as well. We've seen so many of our customers just have these incredible project planning pages that they're using Confluence as their single source of truth in order to get it done. And then we also see a lot of teams that use Confluence to collaborate and solicit feedback on work that's in flight, and also announce works to the rest of their organization. So we see a lot of kind of content collaboration happening in Confluence, and that's really important to business teams, as well as being able to make announcements and talk about what they're doing. So I wanted to take a couple minutes and just go through our competition. I'm sure you guys are actually really well versed in competition, but just wanted to give you some of our insights. So Confluence actually kind of competes in those three market segments, and so I've tried to break up the competition that way up. But firstly, let me say this: as you see competition coming up, I'd love for you to send through your thoughts and anything that we've missed, as you guys are talking to customers every day and new leads every day. So who are you seeing your customers comparing Confluence to most, and under what use cases, if not kind of fitting under these three buckets? So to give you an idea where Confluence fits in with its competition, I've mapped it here. The x-axis scales from documentation to collaboration, and the y-axis scales from small medium business to enterprise. We feel like Confluence actually sits pretty squarely in the middle of this chart, servicing both small and enterprise businesses and meeting both their documentation and collaboration needs. But we're definitely more focused on servicing their documentation needs, and I think that's really where the market views us. But as time goes on, we'll definitely look to slide Confluence to the right to meet to play more in the collaboration market and meet more of the collaboration needs of all businesses. So both small, medium business and enterprise. So I think you can look for us to slide towards social text in that regard. But hopefully this is a really helpful understanding of just where Confluence sits in our space, which in a lot of ways is pretty hard to define in terms of Confluence having a head-to-head competitor. I really think we don't. I think we play in the markets that I mentioned, and so these are the people that I think we rub up against or will rub up against in the future. So I just wanted to reiterate that we'd love to know who you see as our competitors. Which of your customers are comparing Confluence? Who are your customers comparing Confluence to? We'd love to hear from you. So I'll just pause for a couple seconds, and if you haven't been doing so already, looks like some of you have. Please send in through Q&A who your competitors are. All right, great. Well, that wraps up what is Confluence, and hopefully you kind of have a basic understanding, and we all have kind of a similar mindset. Let's take a look at what's coming up next in Confluence 5.7. So Confluence 5.7 will be launched by the marketing team next week on Tuesday, February 10th. So look out for launch preparation for the launch and messaging coming out from our team in the morning on February 10th. But before you go off tweeting and telling your customers about all this exciting news I'm about to tell you about, please wait until February 10th. We have a number of media pitches occurring that week, and if the news was to get out about the release, it could jeopardize our coverage in a variety of publications, and that's just no good for any of us. So thank you ahead of time. We really appreciate your patience, and we think the launch is going to be an awesome one on the 10th. That's going to get a lot of attention. So with your help, we'd love for you to tell all of your customers about Confluence 5.7, and hopefully it brings in a lot of business for everyone. We're really excited about the release. So let's get started. What I'm going to run through now is kind of how we develop the messaging for 5.7. And so I'm going to try and tell it kind of in a story fashion. But this is the basic marketing story. So Confluence 5.7 is focused on giving users a new feedback loop where they can review and discuss work in one place. Giving feedback on a page or files is easily one of the most complicated processes during a person's workday. It typically involves multiple versions of a PowerPoint presentation with a variety of names, a long and hard to follow email chain, and a ton of context switching, as both the reviewer and the author are just constantly jumping back and forth between a file and its feedback to reference suggestions and reference content in the file. So it's just this terribly exhausting process. And we really wanted to hone in on it. So Confluence 5.7, we want the feedback, discussions, and resolutions happening all in one place. So the story starts with Claire, and she uploads a PowerPoint to a Confluence page so she can share it with her team and trust that it's automatically versioned as newer versions are uploaded too. So she uploads it to share it. Claire's teammate Jeff can then view the presentation with an all-new file previewer, and we're really excited about this. This is perfect for Jeff because he doesn't have to download the PowerPoint to see it. He just opens it right up in his page. And that's just such a tedious process of giving feedback, is downloading a file, flipping through the file. It would be so much easier to just preview it right in your browser. But it's not just about previewing. Jeff can go one more step and click to add a pin anywhere on the PowerPoint to give feedback that has context. Dropping a pin will trigger an inline comment where Jeff can give his feedback, mention other teammates to get their help, or even link to other Confluence pages or files to share more information. It's so much easier to keep the conversation and feedback on the file rather than siloing it in an email chain. So Jane can then chime into the discussion as she was called in by Jeff. What's so powerful about having discussions on a file is that giving feedback can be collaborative and also ensure that no one is duplicating work. So as an author, you're avoiding your teammates giving redundant feedback. Feedback is given on the most current version of a file, and you're getting the highest quality feedback as your reviewers can work together to build off one another. It's less work for you and less work for your team too. And that's such an important part about this feedback loop story, is that so often feedback is given one at a time by one teammate at a time, and there's not a lot of collaboration happening. And so, yeah, you have a lot of redundancies, a lot of extra work, and then, yeah, the feedback is delivered by one person, so there isn't this consensus or conversation happening that's driving the best feedback possible. So we really feel like this is going to help people do their best work. So finally, the best feedback loops are the ones that can actually be closed off. So once Claire has incorporated feedback, she can resolve it, which triggers a notification to the contributor that their suggestion was added to the document, and thus closing the loop. We're really excited about this functionality in Confluence, and we think our customers are going to love working with files in Confluence, because now they can easily upload, view, comment, and version their files in ways they never could before. All right, so let's recap what just happened with the features that are actually in the release. So first, users can now share and view files in Confluence. As shown earlier, they can drag and drop a file or image to add it to a Confluence page, but they also can make use of the new Files button in the editor toolbar. This button populates the Insert Files and Images dialog, where it's easy to manage files on your page, on the web, or on other pages in Confluence. Then, looking at your file, you get the all-new rich file previewer, capable of previewing a variety of image file types, Office file types, including Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and PDFs. You can quickly go through the files, download them, browse the versions, upload a new version, and share an individual file with teammates, just like you would a Confluence page. So if you click the share button, you actually get the share dialog, very similar to how it works on a page. It's a really exciting experience, and our development team has been working really hard on delivering this. So number 2, when looking at the file in the previewer, you can start by leaving feedback by dropping a pin anywhere on the file. You can see the yellow pin in the pop-up circle in the screenshot now. Once this pin is dropped, it triggers an inline comment where you can leave feedback using text, @mentions, page and file links, and emoticons. As mentioned, this is such a useful experience and really exciting, particularly for users that spend a lot of time working on spreadsheets and PowerPoints. And those users are typically our business teams. So as I said, we really feel like this is a new frontier. So providing a file experience was a really important bridge to getting business users who are much more comfortable in email and in their files to sharing them in Confluence. We also made it possible to give inline feedback on pages too. So all you need to do is highlight a word, sentence, or paragraph, and it will trigger a small dialog, as you can see here in the pop-up. When you choose the comment button, it will trigger an inline comment. This is so awesome for reviewing long documents where previously you had to constantly scroll up and down to read and leave feedback, as the only option for comments were page comments at the bottom of the page. And so when you do hit add inline comment, you'll get, very similarly to files, you'll get that inline comment off on the right of the page, where again you can mention, you can link, you can add emoticons, So those discussions can happen right in line, and there's always context, which is just such a helpful way to collaborate in Confluence. As mentioned in the story, inline comments are great for having discussions and clarifying and improving feedback. So if you've ever tried to discuss feedback via email, it's a complete nightmare. So we're really excited about how much better this experience is for people that work with files every day. And finally, users can now resolve comments, which triggers a notification to keep the contributors up to date about what suggestions were incorporated. So on any inline comment, there is a resolve button, and when you click that, that's what happens. But just to take a step back, we built this feedback loop because customers were asking about it, but we felt it was critical for business teams who regularly work with files. So if you have any leads out there or people that didn't like Confluence because it didn't provide enough with files, we think this is just an awesome start for what our development team is working on. And we're really excited about it. So Confluence 5.7 is not just all the inline commenting and the feedback loop. There are some other awesome improvements. The Roadmap Planner macro is something that has been available on marketplace.atlassian.com for a while. But what it is, it's awesome for visualizing product, project, and team roadmaps with a lightweight timeline. So we were often hearing about how product and project owners wanted a way to communicate a plan to stakeholders in a way that made sense to everybody, and so that really meant it had to be visual. But these owners were tired of being asked what's coming next, or when is this shipping, or when is this milestone. So the Roadmap Planner macro is great because you can build out an entire schedule using lanes, bars, and markers. But you can also even add more context to Work and Flight by linking to relevant Confluence pages, as you can see here. It's also really easy to adjust by dragging and dropping bars on the timeline. So this isn't a roadmap that's really hard or clunky to update. It's really quick and easy. And the goal is not to be so granular, but really to give that high-level information to stakeholders, because typically that's all people really wanted to know. And lastly, I just want to clarify that the Roadmap Planner macro isn't just for product roadmaps. Every team has a need to communicate what they are working on at a high-level timeline. So we on the Confluence marketing team, to communicate our quarterly plans and yearly plans, we use the Roadmap Planner macro, and it works really well for us. So next up, HipChat is critical to Atlassian's success. I know that you were all in the HipChat server webinar the other day, and the launch went out on the 27th. It's critical. If they didn't stress it enough, it's the number one focus at Atlassian right now, and we're doing everything we can to work better with HipChat. So in 5.7, you can integrate Confluence and HipChat to connect Confluence spaces and HipChat rooms, which delivers push notifications in real time from Confluence. But this is really just the beginning. We have a lot of exciting stuff on the roadmap to build this integration out more. So there's a lot more room to grow in this space, and you'll see it over the coming year. Lastly, we simplified our editor by moving the breadcrumbs and page title into the editor. We felt this was more intuitive. It was easy to transition from writing your title to your page, but also saved a ton of space and gave more room to the editor. But this is also an important step for us to redesign the editor to make more room for inline comments inside the editor. So look out for more there. But another cool addition is that we also replaced the cancel button with the close button. And that's to avoid accidental cancels that didn't save a draft of your page. Now if you click close, you automatically save a draft of the page. So you're never burned by Confluence. Also in 5.7, we did some improvement to our Confluence Data Center offering. Let's take a look. Cluster administrators are going to love our new cluster monitoring tools. They can see essential information like the node you're currently on, system and heap usage on each node, and uptime stats for each node at a glance. excuse me, admins can dig deeper into live activity like web requests, long running tasks, and scheduled jobs, and see cache usage and runtime info, and view the system information for every node, all without leaving the current node. So some really awesome administrator functions for Confluence Data Center. We're really excited about Confluence 5.7. We think it provides a ton of value to existing customers. And so now that we've taken a look at 5.7, I wanted to provide more context in, where does Confluence 5.7 really stand within our vision of where Confluence is going. So let's talk about what's next on the horizon. So before I jumped into what's next, I just wanted to revisit our vision from earlier, where we talked about the collaboration lifecycle, and um, I'm particularly keen to continue to breathe our values into just discuss our values. So we want everyone to have a voice. We want information to flow freely, and most importantly, we see Confluence as a tool where work actually gets done. So with that in mind, we're on a journey right now to turn Confluence from a documentation tool into a collaboration tool. And that means we really have to change the market's perception of what Confluence is. There are a number of fronts to this battle, but something that's really important to us is this dichotomy between asynchronous collaboration and real-time collaboration. Confluence is great at asynchronous collaboration, and we don't want to stop that because it's so valuable. It's how so much work gets done. But we also really need to step up our real-time game. So you'll be seeing a lot more for us over the next 12 to 18 months. But ultimately, what having real-time functionality in Confluence is about is breathing that is about changing the market's perception of what Confluence is. I think documentation tools, it's a lot more important to be asynchronous, but with collaboration tools, that needs to happen in the here and now. And so real time is a really important part of that. So our journey of going from documentation to collaboration is something we've been evolving recently, and will continue to drive over the coming years. So what exactly is on the horizon for Confluence? So I want to take a moment to emphasize that there are no hard dates on anything I'm about to discuss, and that this information is for you, our experts. Um, I thought it was important for you all to understand where we see Confluence going, because you have such a huge stake in its success, and I want to encourage and how we want to encourage new users to use Confluence. So with that in mind, let's talk about four focus areas we're targeting from this point forward. So the first focus area is something we're called Simplify. And what we've been learning for our customers is that Confluence is too complex and hard for the average user to get started and comprehend what value it provides to a specific audience. So the mission of Simplify is to enable users to intuitively navigate, create, and resume their work in Confluence. And we're in the process. These focus areas are coming from an offsite we just held in December. So we're still working on what this actually means, what this looks like in the product. But a big part of Simplify is cutting out parts of the product that might be redundant or don't make sense. Part of Simplify is also getting first-time users and turning them into advanced users as quickly as possible. So what is the support we need to provide in product to make that happen? And then as the mission says here, we want people to get their work done, really, to navigate, create, and resume their work. And that's a really important part of Simplify. The second focus area is cloud performance. Confluence is slow based on our internal goals, customer feedback, and comparisons with competitors and benchmarks. The mission of cloud performance is to make visible improvements for our cloud users in speed and responsiveness when using the product. So if you've used cloud, you have seen some of the slowness, and this is a company mission, but there's a number of things we can do on the Confluence side of things to really improve this performance, and we feel like that's part of an engaging first experience in the product, is just for it to be snappy and speedy. Um, and that's part of revolutionizing Confluence into a collaboration product, is that it needs to be quick. Number three is the content lifecycle. So creating content is the most fundamental thing you do in Confluence. The experience, though, right now is a bit cumbersome, complex, and doesn't really meet the expectations of our development team or our users. The mission of Content Lifecycle is to enable users to create, collaborate, and publish content with speed and confidence. So just taking a look at Confluence 5.7, it really fits into this focus area by delivering inline comments for files and pages. And if you saw at Summit, we're also working hard on real-time editing. That is also a big part of the Content Lifecycle focus area. So number four, mobile. We just hired a new senior product manager, and we're really just starting to get our plans sorted as we speak. So as Confluence, as of right now, Confluence on mobile devices is just not really a selling point. So we want it to be, and not necessarily porting the desktop experience, but rather reimagining it for on-the-go and small screens. Again, I think moving from documentation to collaboration, mobile is such an important story that you need to be able to work with your team no matter where you are, and that's a real-time aspect. If you can't get, if Confluence isn't really a big part of your phone, then you're missing that real-time, and you have to wait and get back onto your desktop to get anything done. So mobile is a huge part of our strategy moving forward. Well, thank you, everyone. That's it from me today. I just want to thank you for joining me. I hope this presentation was helpful. We really want to establish our connection with you guys. And if you have any feedback for me, feel free to send it through the Q&A, or you can contact me at randerson@atlassian.com. That's randerson@atlassian.com. I'd love to hear what information would be helpful so we can keep you better informed moving forward. And now I'll answer as many questions as I can, so please just give me a moment as I look through the questions you've sent in so I can pick the most popular ones to answer at this time. Thanks.